So first I started off by drawing a circle onto one side of the sponge, and I just used a roll of tape to do this. And since my foam or sponge wasn't thick enough, I ended up gluing two sponges together, as you can see. And I also ended up cutting off the ends using a craft knife, so that way it would be a little bit more square shaped or rectangular shaped. And you can make yours as big or as small as you want. So now on to the next step. So here is what the shape looks like so far. And I already went ahead and I smoothed off most of it, as you can see. So basically what I did was I just cut around the circle that I drew, and then I just made long cuts all the way around the squishy and turned it into basically a cylinder or cake roll shape. So I just made cuts all the way around it like so, just going straight up with my scissors. And I also rounded off the other side as well. And then what I did was I just made small cuts all over it and smoothed off the shape with my scissors like so. And I also made curved cuts with my scissors like this, just to make it look a little bit more cylinder shaped. And then what I did was I flattened off the bottom part of the cake roll slightly, just by making cuts with my scissors like this. So that way it should look like this on both sides. So as you can see, it looks a little bit flatter. And I also smoothed off the other two sides of the cake roll as well, again just by making small cuts with my scissors. So hopefully that all makes sense. So now moving on to the next step. So next what I did was I drew lines all the way around the cake, just using a pen. And you can use a ruler to do this, or you can just draw them on randomly like I did. And it's okay if it looks messy. but obviously you don't want to draw any lines on the bottom or on the front parts of the cake. And this is going to create the texture of the log. So once you've done that, next what you want to do is you want to cut off all of the pen lines that you just drew, just really carefully, like so. So you just want to do this all the way around the squishy. So basically like that. So I'm just going to finish this. So once you've done that, here is what it should look like. So as you can see, I cut off all of the pen lines. Well, I did miss out a few, but that's okay. And I think this makes it look a little bit more like realistic, like a log. And then once you've done that, next what you want to do is you want to draw 2 swirls on both sides of the cake using a pen. So you want to draw one swirl going one way, and then on the other side you want to draw it going the other way, if that makes sense. And I just used an image from Google as reference. Sorry if it's not focusing. And then once you've done that, we can move on to the next step. So now this next step is optional, but next what I did was I just took some dark green felt and I cut out 2 holly leaves. And I just drew them onto the felt by hand, but you can use a template if you want to. And then I just cut them out with my scissors. And these are going to go on top of the cake later. So yeah, this is optional, you do not have to do this part. And then once you've done that, we can finally start painting it. So next what I did was I mixed some brown and a little bit of burnt sienna, white and yellow paint together, and I painted the log. And then what I did was I used a darker shade of brown puffy paint to paint both sides of the cake. So you want to make sure that it's a little bit darker than the frosting. And then I just use my white puffy paint for the filling or the swirls. I think it looks really good so far. And by the way, I'm just using this image here as reference. So now moving on to the next step. So next what I did was I created the powdered sugar or the snow on top using my white puffy paint. And then I just used a paintbrush to dab on the paint. And I just did it all over the cake, as you can see. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it makes it look a little bit more realistic. And by the way, you do not have to do this if you don't want to. You can just leave it plain. So now on to the next step. So next what I did was I painted on 2 lines onto the holly leaves using dark green puffy paint. And then I just glued them onto the top of the cake using some brown puffy paint. And then I just used some red puffy paint for the berries, and they're basically just 3 dots. And then I also added on some powdered sugar on the holly leaves, again just by dabbing on some white puffy paint. And I also tried adding some snow onto the berries. And again, it is completely up to you how you want to decorate yours, or you can just leave it plain. And I just use these 2 images here as reference. But you can also look up different pictures of Yule log cakes for inspiration. So now you want to let this dry and then your squishy will be done. So here it is once it is all dry. And I think it turned out really realistic. And I think it looks a lot more realistic on the plate as well. And I also think the shape of it turned out really good as well. However, it did come out a little bit smaller, but that's fine. And it is really soft and squishy. And I ended up adding some more white paint to the berries to make it look more like there was snow on the berries. And I think it worked out really good. And again, it is up to you how you want to decorate yours, or you can just leave yours plain. And you can look up images of Yule log cakes as well for inspiration. So yep, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and as always please feel free to request any more squishy tutorials you would like me to do in the comments below. And also please stay tuned because I should hopefully have one more Christmas squishy tutorial coming soon. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye!